Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the Garden of Truth. Um, let's see, today, what should we talk about? I think one of the things, especially in these times right now, that it seems pretty common that in America that people are talking about, and maybe even in other places of the world, is the use of or the influence of Sharia from the Muslims. And for me personally, to begin with, on the topic of the word Sharia, it's one of these words that a lot of work has been done as a form of propaganda to create what I call psychological landmines, essentially educating people to have a certain type of response to a word that they know nothing about. So jihad is one of those words, and we can talk about that in another form. But definitely Sharia is one of those psychological landmines that has been set up for people to be triggered with emotions based upon really not knowing what it is that they're hearing about. But the idea is that's pushed out there right now is that, first of all, you have to be afraid of Muslims, and when they're going to take over the world, and they're going to institute Sharia, and they're going to control everybody by it. And let me just try to explain what Sharia is, and then you can decide for yourself if that's something really to be afraid of or not. Okay? So number one, Sharia literally means a road or a path. The road or the path. And the expression is used to relate to a path that is well trodden to a source of water. That's kind of the idea of it, is that it's a path that's well walked, so you can see it clearly. If anybody's ever taken a walk in the woods and you can see a path that is made, by animals traveling through, or a lot of people walking in the same spot, it's basically because it leads to something that is common for everyone to need, And so the expression of Sharia really, it ultimately means a road or a path to that which is life affirming. And already, if you accept that as a premise, right, you're like, yeah, well, that's nothing to be afraid of. And of course it's not. But what are some of the principles of Islamic Sharia? What does it address? The first thing that it addresses, and this, as Americans, we are very much, in agreement about the Constitution and the rights that it offers. And one of the main rights that we look at is the freedom of religion, right? And so one of the main things that Islam, that the Sharia uses or talks about, is it draws out the application of faith practices, of religion. It's a so we have freedom of religion already. So you have freedom to use Sharia. It's already there as an American value and embedded in the Constitution. And so how do we use Sharia for that? Well, we use it for knowing how we're going to do our prayer, how we know how to do our fasting during the month of Ramadan and things like that. How we use it to understand about giving alms, giving what's called zakah in Arabic, but it means alms giving. It's giving money from your wealth to those who need it. Okay, and also, for the Muslims, how to make your pilgrimage to Hajj, to the Kaaba, once in a lifetime, if possible. And all these things are religious practices. And no good American is going to say, well, you can't do your prayer You can't follow your Sharia, and we're not going to let you do your prayer. That's just not really an American thing to do, right? It's not a constitutional thing to do, for sure. Um, and and then the idea is like, well, the Muslims, when they put the Sharia in place, well, by golly, they're not going to allow for anybody to do anything they want to. And that's just not true either. If you look historically, and you can look historically, a great example of Islam in the West is going to the history of Al-Andalus. And I'll repeat that over and over again as we make our journey through this garden of truth, because it's a wonderful example of Islam in the West. It lasted for over 800 years, and it was a multicultural, multi-religious, society in southern Spain and all the way up to France and over towards Italy and everything. So it was a huge area that it influenced, and people lived for 800 years in safety and cohesion and everything like that. And it wasn't until the Crusades, one of the Crusades made its way into Spain, and then people were forced to convert into other faiths. But Muslims never forced people to become anything else than what they were. We don't believe in forced conversions, because God said in the Quran that there is no compulsion with Islam. There's no compulsion. You can't force somebody to believe what they don't believe. It has to be in their heart. It has to be from their heart, a connection that they desire and want. And this is the understanding in Islam. And if you know that, then it takes away a lot of this mysterious and mystique, fear-mongering propaganda, psychological landmines that have been placed into the minds and the hearts of many unwitting people. People who just don't know about Islam and don't know any Muslims or whatever, like that. So, and they don't take the time to just look into it themselves either. So they just take what's given to them, and what's given to them is a whole a pan of a slop of fear mongering, and it's used, unfortunately, to try to gain influence and make people go towards certain ideas and practices that a lot of times aren't even healthy for the whole society, for themselves, and especially it causes division between certain parts of American society and other parts of American society. So this is a big trap that's been set over and over again in all kinds of different areas of our society, and we have to become more and more aware of those things, make ourselves open to asking questions and becoming aware. But to go on with the explanation about what Sharia means is because it does go beyond religion, just our practices of what we do in prayer and things like that. It goes beyond that. It applies also to just general life, the protection of human rights, the protection of making a good, healthy society, making sure that there is basic provisions are able for everybody to gain access to. So life is a part of what, making life and making life easy, treating your neighbor well. These are the kinds of parts that could also be considered part of the Sharia. And these, again, aren't scary. They're not bad things for mankind. They're simple, common, everyday understandings, And then another is about family and lineage. And so inheritance, marriage, divorce, may God protect everybody from that, because we want for good, healthy families. And that's a part of what the Sharia tries to instill. It gives rights to women, it gives rights to children, it lays things out clearly and plainly so that everybody knows their place. And so these are parts of how Sharia affects you have life and family and intellect as well. So again, the freedom of speech. Yes, in the Muslim societies, and this goes all the way back to the Prophet, and after his time even, some of the great leaders that came in after him. I always remember one of these stories about Umar ibn al-Khattab. He's one of the inheritors of the leadership of the Muslims just after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So Umar ibn al-Khattab was in a public forum, and he was speaking about something that's permissible or not permissible, and then a woman stood up and said, what about this chapter or this line from the Quran, Umar? What about that? And he said, let it be known today that a woman corrected Omar. Yeah. And that's one of the founding people of that great Muslim society. And he is in a public forum, and the woman spoke to him, and then he said, make sure everybody notes this, that she corrected me today. I was wrong. She brought forward evidence that is better than what I was trying to put forward. I mean, come on, people. That's what Islam is about, honestly. That's the way that I've found it to be. And again, I took on Islam. I was born and raised in America. I took on Islam, and I've been asked all kinds of questions by family and friends and things like that. And I've looked for those answers, and honestly, over and over again, sometimes I would go at these things thinking, that could be wrong. But it would be explained to me how this makes sense. And it ultimately for me has made sense. And I, again, if you have questions about certain things, bring it to me, because I've learned more through questions that people have asked than through my own just seeking. Because some people ask questions that I would have never thought to have asked, and so I'm going to legitimately go and try to find the answers to those things so that I know that I'm on a good path. And I've done that. I've had to do that over and over again throughout my journey in these last 30-some years. But again, when we talk about Sharia, what's another aspect? So you got freedom of thought, freedom of intellect. And again, if you use Al-Andalus as an example, for 800 years, a society in southern Spain that was under Muslim rule, and people came from all over the world to study from the libraries of Al-Andalus. And scholars wrote many books, and they were all from different faith practices and things like that. Nobody was forced and compelled to do anything, and they developed all kinds of free thought. And this is a part that is very necessary about seeking knowledge, about sharing knowledge, and this has to be protected in a society. And we, in our American society, we have to be aware of this really right now, especially because all of these information platforms that we're using are being bought by people with an intent to to bring in all kinds of fake news and to bring in all kinds of disinformation to confuse us. And it's happening in real time. It's happening in real time. It's not happening here because this is the garden of truth. But you got to be aware of what you're out there dealing with. And I keep telling my children this: please, please, please be aware. I mean, especially now too, they're introducing AI, and some of that stuff seems so real, but it's so wrong, And so we got to really be aware of this kind of stuff. And so protecting the intellect, protecting free thought, protecting the seeking of knowledge and the sharing of knowledge, that's a big part of what the Sharia is about. Again, it's the road or the path to the water. And another one of the areas that Sharia deals with is property. And this is, again, baked into the Constitution and American civil law and stuff like that. So preserving property, and but also it lays out free and fair trade, making sure that people aren't taking advantage of each other, aren't robbing and stealing and these kinds of things. But another really important part that falls into that area of protecting property is the prohibition of riba, our usury practices are out of control in the society we live in these days. I would say it's the most oppressive crime that's being done worldwide. And I think that honestly, as human beings, we need to be aware of it, and we need to make moves towards trying to delegitimize the legalization of usury in the world. And that is going to make a big change for us in a lot of ways, economically and freedom-wise. Just bring freedom, because a lot of what we are, what good, wholesome, everyday Americans are feeling the oppression about in economy, the economic difficulties and the crunch and all these kinds of things, it's all due to the oppression of the usurious cabal that's they legalized and legitimized themselves through using man's laws in all the different governments throughout the world. And we need to criminalize that again, and we need to be aware of how to do that properly, so that it best affects everybody. But again, this is part of what Sharia is about. And if actually in that point, if I were to guess or speculate as to why people would develop a propaganda against Muslims, I would put it mostly on that last one. It's because Muslims know clearly that usury is not okay, and it really causes a harm to society, and Muslims are told to really stand against that. And so I would say that that's actually one of the most fundamental pieces of what all the propaganda and the fear is about. Oh, fear your Muslim friends and don't let them put Sharia in place. Why? Because we ask for usury to be criminalized. And if it is, it would change, again, everything that the whole banking industry is about and all that kind of stuff. And it's a huge thing. I say for sure. I believe it is the biggest oppression on all of the mankind in the whole world, is how they utilize that crime. But just some of the other topics real quick that are related to Sharia. When it comes to that, we talk about things that are fard, which means it's mandatory to do this. We talk about the mustahab, which is a recommended thing. We talk about the mubah, which is a permissible thing. So you see there's gradations. It's not just black and white. There's makruh, which is discouraged. It's best don't go near it. It's best for you kind of thing. And then there's the haram. And the haram is what is completely forbidden. And the interesting thing about that in Islam is that there are just maybe a handful or two handfuls. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments, It's like murder is haram. Stealing, cheating, those kinds of things. And again, riba or usury, haram, But you have alcohol. Muslims have alcohol as a haram. And actually the way it mentions it in the Quran is it says there's good and bad in it, but the bad outweighs the good. So just leave it alone, right? Gambling is haram, is forbidden. Pornography is haram and forbidden. So if you look at these things and you go, wow, the Muslims care about those kinds of things. Look at alcohol in Wisconsin itself. I'm in Wisconsin, in the Midwest. If you somehow filtered out all of the different deaths and crimes and houses coming apart that are based on the use of alcohol, man, you'd have a much more healthy society for sure. And anybody who's dealt with being addicted to alcohol and trying to get away from it and stuff like that could easily agree, dude, if we could do anything in our society to try to get this out, it would be much better for everybody. So the good and bad, but the bad outweighs the good. I think that makes sense. And there's, those are the main things that are there. Again, pork is mentioned in the Bible. Jesus didn't eat pork, so, and I understand that there are, verses that came later on that I would say kind of confused people about that. But pork has always been haram and or forbidden, and But again, if somebody wants to eat pig, go ahead and eat it. Whatever, that's your decision. Muslims don't say you can't do it, that you can't do it. Muslims just say we don't do it. So we don't eat pork and pig and whatever all the kind of stuff, and we do our best to stay away from it. So that's not something somebody else can eat it if they want to, but it's really just not that great of a thing. It's kind of, I always go back to the story of Adam and Eve when it comes to the whole pig thing, because it's like God just told Adam, don't eat from that tree, whatever the fruit was, right? Don't eat from that. And didn't really give him a reason, just said don't do it, right? And the same with pig. It's like, don't eat that. And of course in the Bible, I think it's referred to as unclean and all that kind of stuff. But in Islam, it's just like, don't do it. So it's kind of like the forbidden fruit, just leave it alone. And yeah, so anyway, there's some of those things. But again, Muslims understand that what is forbidden to us, if it's like a religious thing that's forbidden to us, it's not necessarily forbidden to everybody. And so in a society, there would be a place for that to be okay for others, kind of thing, And I'm saying, even in the great Muslim societies, if you look back, you'll find that there were those things available to the people who would use them. So the idea that Islam comes in with its Sharia and it takes over and it makes people do this and that. Oh, another one that people make reference to when it comes to the talk of Sharia, and I'm sorry the video is going so long, is like people talk about women's rights and that women are forced to wear the hijab and things like that. And my wife always says, that's my issue. Like that's between me and God. It's not your issue to work out. And that's exactly the way it is. Men don't tell women that that they have to, or they should or shouldn't do that. They leave it to the women. And that's their own thing to sort out. God made clear in the Quran and in other works that modesty is the greatest thing. It's the best thing for society. Modesty is the best thing for society. And that's really what the hijab is about. But with mentioning the hijab, I just find it funny because so many of the people who are agitated about Sharia, they say, this American place is based on Christian values. It's a Christian country and all that. And it's like, whoa, bro, this is America, man. We have a constitution. It's a freedom of religion. It doesn't say one religion. And when it comes to the women, they have the right to choose to wear their hijab or not to wear their hijab. And when it comes to women, and you look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon her, she's always in a hijab. Every single time that you see a picture of her, she always has her hair covered. She's always dressed modestly. And anyone who would depict her otherwise would be dishonoring her. So, and of course, there are artists out there who do all kinds of whacked out stuff to dishonor, the sacred. And to me, that's not art. That's just disgusting. But hey, we live in a free society. People do what they want to do. I just look at it as crazy or kind of, something's wrong up here, or really wrong in here. But in the end, it's not something that is supposed to be forced upon somebody. It's something that it's a suggestion made by God for somebody to make the choice for. And the greatest choice when it comes to those kinds of things, and even for men, modesty is the best thing for ourselves in the society, and to keep private affairs in your private home, So the beauty of your wife is shared in your home. That's a romantic and beautiful thing, really, if you think about it, the respect and the love that's there. So anyway, Sharia, just remember, it's the road or the path to water. That's what we're really talking about. And it's nothing to really be afraid of. And again, if I haven't addressed this well enough, make a comment or find another Muslim and just ask them about it. And, for the most part, people will be able to explain it in a fair way, I think. So thanks for joining us on the Garden of Truth, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Peace.